Yo, what's up? This is the Fight Block. Here to give my UFC 143 predictions. Carlos Condit takes on Nick Diaz in the main event for the UFC interim welterweight title. GSP originally supposed to take on Nick Diaz. Had to pull out with an injury, knee injury, undergoing surgery. So, big fight for Carlos Condit and Nick Diaz. Winner becomes interim champion. I'm going to make these predictions quick. As you can maybe tell, I'm in the hotel room. I'm in the process of moving again. And so hopefully I can keep up with the fights coming up, but I'm going to do my best. But UFC 143, card opens up with Ed Herman taking on Clifford Starks. Ed Herman, great comeback story. Blew out his knee in one of his previous fights a couple years ago. He was out for about a year and a half, maybe two. And he's won his last two fights in the UFC since making his comeback. First one by knockout, second by submission, both in the first round. So Ed Herman looking good, great comeback story. Taking on Clifford Starks, who was undefeated in his MMA career. I believe he's 8-0. Won his UFC debut by decision. Don't know much about him. Don't think I saw his fight, but so I'm picking Ed Herman in this fight. He's got some experience fighting some top fighters in the UFC, and it's a feel-good story with his whole comeback and everything. His injury that he suffered was pretty brutal, and it wasn't fun to watch, but glad he's back, glad he's winning. Picking Ed Herman to take this fight by submission in the second round. Moving on to the next fight. Renan Barão takes on Scott Jorgensen. Barão, 26-1 or something in his MMA career. He's just got a phenomenal record. He's been in the WEC and the UFC. I know I've seen him fight. I can't remember any of his fights in my head. But guy can win by submission. Guy can win by knockout. Scott Jorgensen, he's a brawler, and he brings it every fight. Since losing to Dominic Cruz in a title matchup, Jorgensen's won his last two fights, including one by knockout. So Jorgensen brings it. He can fight you on the ground. He can fight you on the feet. Just a well-rounded fighter. But Barão, he's sneaky, and he finishes fights. Jorgensen, not as dangerous in my opinion. Definitely a brawler, but a lot of his fights go to the judges. But I'm going to take Barão to win this fight by submission in the second round. I think he just catches Scotty Jorgensen. Moving on to Josh Koscheck against Mike Pierce. I just think all around Josh Koscheck's a better fighter. I think his wrestling's better than Pierce, and I think his striking's better than Pierce. And Pierce had a tough fight with Johnny Hendricks, went to a split decision. Johnny Hendricks, since knocking out John Fitch, has skyrocketed in terms of contendership. So Pierce has been in there with some quality fighters, but Josh Koscheck coming off of that knockout win over Matt Hughes, I think continues his winning ways. I'll say Josh Koscheck wins this fight by decision. Moving on to the co-main event, Roy Nelson welcomes back Fabricio Verdum into the UFC. Verdum, last fight, took on Alistar Overeem in Strikeforce for the Heavyweight Grand Prix tournament. Gave Overeem a run for his money. Very bizarre fight. The thing about Verdum is he is just a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ace, and that's where he wants to take fights, is to the ground, even if that means laying on his back and asking for his opponent to jump in his guard. I know when he debuted in the UFC, I think he was taking on Andrei Arlovsky, did a very similar thing where he just laid on the ground, and not the funnest fighter to watch, but he's scary, and we all saw that when he handed Fedor his first official loss, caught Fedor in that triangle choke. So Fabricio was doing very, very tough on the ground, one of the best in the world. Takes on Roy Nelson, who is also a top grappler, and I don't believe Roy Nelson's ever been submitted in his career. So Nelson could definitely hang on the ground, but it would be interesting if the fight got there. I think Roy Nelson's going to try and keep this fight standing, where he should have the striking advantage, although Verdum actually, in my opinion, may have beaten Overeem on the feet. Overeem in that last fight just against Verdum looked horrible. But, Verdum, he does have some decent striking, not the most technical. This is gonna be an interesting fight, and Roy Nelson coming off that win over Mirko Cro Cop. I actually didn't see it, so I can't really say how he looked, but I know he looked horrible against Frank Mir, and just was not impressed at all. And I think all around Fabricio Verdum is the better fighter, should win this fight, and I don't know if he's going to be able to submit Nelson, or if Nelson's even going to let him get this fight to the ground. But I'm going to take Verdum to win this by, I'll say, submission. I think he catches Roy Nelson somehow and finishes this fight in the, I'll say, third round by way of submission. Moving on to the main event, Nick Diaz taking on Carlos Condit. Nick Diaz looking good in his UFC debut against BJ Penn. Vacated the welterweight Strikeforce title. Champion over there, defended it several times. His boxing is top-notch. And Carlos Condit, though, he's just another one of those guys who's a brawler. And he's just naturally, no pun intended, natural-born killer, naturally just talented. You can tell the guy was born to fight, and he brings it every time. Very, very entertaining fighter. And, that flying knee knockout he had over Dong Young Kim was very impressive. And, this is just going to be an awesome fight. Both these guys are going to come. They're going to bring it. Diaz is going to be looking to stand and box. Carlos Condit, I don't think, minds standing with him. And both have solid ground game. This is just an awesome matchup. And really could go either way. But I think Carlos Condit takes this fight, and I say he catches Diaz and finishes this fight in the, I'll say, third round. But this is going to be a brawl, and really could go either way. So Carlos Condit, though, I'm taking him to win this one, and I think he overall is a little bit more well-rounded. Even though Diaz is crazy good jiu-jitsu, boxing is top-notch, I think Carlos Condit will be able to mix it up a little bit more on the feet, and will catch Diaz by surprise. So those are my UFC 143 predictions. Just said whatever was at the top of my head, so made them quick. Hopefully this video comes out all right. And subscribe, hit up the Twitter, fight_block, and check out the blog, www.fightblock.blogspot.com. Hopefully I'll be back soon and get the audio and everything set up better. I'm also got a new laptop, so still figuring these couple things out. So those are my predictions. Good fights. Peace.